Hello, this is Ed Markey speaking. Welcome to the Ed Markey podcast. Okay, so
Let me know. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm here with Kaniela Ng, who is the National Director for the Green New Deal Network. So Kaniela's kind of a one-name person, like Beyonce, or just a one-name guy now. He's out there leading the Green New Deal Network, and he's been a community and a climate activist for 15 years, and more than 15 years actually. And we thank him for his leadership. Still at a critical time in the history of the impact that climate is having upon our nation and the planet. So you've got a long history, Kaniela, of climate activism. So tell us where you see this battle right now and what needs to be done.
Yeah, well, first of all, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for having me. And thanks for coming out yesterday at the press conference for the 5-year anniversary. Your speech at the happy hour was riveting, really exciting. I'm still reeling. You seem to have a lot of energy, but I'm like, I almost lost my voice. But yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
So what Kaniela was talking about was, it was a big party last night celebrating the 5th anniversary, our 5th birthday of the Green New Deal resolution, and hundreds of mostly young activists came together to celebrate. Tell us about that.
It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I mean, there was like a long line out the door, so it was like the place to be on a Tuesday night in DC. And so much so that like the security would actually stop me after, and they're like, look at the ticker, like look how many people came in, and they're like stoked, like what is this? Like I never really heard about this, but like I want to get involved. And like that's the exact note we gotta hit. It's like we call it the bounce house theory of change, where it's just like unleash that inner kid, like make it fun and like make it cool, like attach it to the culture. And I think that's really what we're trying to embody. And we gotta approach this work with joy, because there's a lot of dark stuff happening. But like when we come together, it's a good time.
And again, it's not your age. It's the age of your ideas, which is important. So I'm still the youngest kid in the room. I'm still fighting with all of those incredible leaders that you had gathered last night by the hundreds to celebrate the 5th birthday. And we actually sang "Happy Birthday to the Green New Deal," and everyone sang along. It was just a blast. So tell us about the important work that you're doing at the Green New Deal Network right now.
Yeah, sure. So the Green New Deal Network is a national organization, or it's a coalition. It started off like right when we kind of pushed the Green New Deal to the fore. It was your introduction of the resolution alongside Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez that really rocketed this proposal to stardom, and really shifted the way we looked at politics. I think before that, it was they didn't see the world as like connected, intersectional. And it's like, if we just address climate, we'll be okay, but that's an impossible thing to do. So what the Green New Deal did is it ignited people that fight for racial justice and social justice and gender justice. So in that spirit, Green New Deal Network was formed to bring all those groups together, because we know that we will only win if all of us are in the movement. And if we limit the focus, then we will limit the audience. So the point was to expand the focus of climate justice, and then we'll expand the audience, and that was a winning formula.
So how about for yourself? What spurred you to become a climate activist? What was your epiphany that said, I'm going to dedicate my life to working on this issue?
Yeah, so I'm Kanaka Maoli, native Hawaiian Romboy, and I'm not like, I wasn't really into the environmental movement necessarily. It was more like other things, right? Like your land getting taken away, stolen, build strip malls on it instead. It was having to work in the pineapple fields at 14 years old to help my single mother. It would rain sugarcane ash on us as a kid, and we all had asthmatic symptoms. Those are the things. It's more about health and wealth, the lack of wealth in our communities. And then later on in college, they did what I was supposed to do. Became the first, kids to go to college and all that in the family. And then you learn like, oh, this is caused by pollution and corporate pollution and that's what kind of got me into it. So from the beginning, I like necessarily had to approach this work intersectionally.
So let's just go back to Hawaii a little bit, because just this week the Maui police released their report on the devastating fire that ripped through your home of Maui, and the conditions that helped to contribute to it. So talk a little bit about that and what happened last August, and what you think the response should be to that devastation, not just in helping the people who were impacted, but what's the message and the policies we have to adopt to make sure it doesn't occur otherwise.
Yeah, if we had a Green New Deal, there would have never been a fire. Let's start there. I wrote an article about this in Time magazine, and essentially, like Maui was Lahaina Maui, which completely got burned to a crisp, used to be a wetland. It didn't have invasive grass. The water was diverted away from the people in order to, irrigate the monocrops, and like these original sugar barons completely like made Lahaina what it is. And then the utility, of course, like didn't upkeep the lines. This is a community with like $1.4 million homes. So all those conditions kind of led to, of course, climate change and like high winds created the conditions to spread the fire very quickly. What we did is we raised a couple $1 million off of small dollar donations, hired people who actually lost their homes, like impacted survivors. And trained them up to organize, and they've been organizing. I mean, they did a lot of direct relief at first, but now they're like controlling the legislature's agenda, and they're turning out like hundreds of people, and uniting unions and environmentalists and all that. So I think there's going to be a lot more climate disasters in upcoming years, and we really need to know how to like seize that moment of a whirlwind to create some good Green New Deal policies.
So you're saying right now it's the locals in Hawaii who are organizing, and they want solutions by and for the locals coming out of the state legislature.
They're saying convert the vacation rentals to long-term housing for our people. They're saying return the streams back to like the local farmers that are actually making food, not just exports. And they're saying we like stop giving everything to the tourists, and keep some of the wealth for the local people as well.
When people ask me what was the moment where I decided to become an environmentalist, and I was
just about to ask you.
I'm not saying that happened, when I was 10 years old, but at age 10, my mother did say to me, I lived in Ward 2 in Malden, a blue-collar community just about 4 miles north of Boston. And the Malden River was 3 blocks from my house. And I still live 3 blocks from the Malden River. But it had chemical companies, it had coal companies, it just had company after company that used the Malden River as a dumping ground. And my mother said to me, Eddie, whatever you do, don't swim in the Malden River, when I was 10 years old. And that was because the Malden River was black with a pre-Jimi Hendrix purple haze over the Malden River, which you could see. It was unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
So every industrial company tries to figure out a way where they just dump the problem on the community. And then they want you to thank them for creating the jobs that ultimately leave behind this residue of pollution, which then comes back to harm the community. So that's what you lived through. Talking about your industrialists, same thing was true for me. They wanted to be an environmental sacrifice zone. So sorry about all the damage, and we're not going to remediate it either. We're just going to leave it for you to figure out what the problem was. So that's what happened in Hawaii as well.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. And that makes sense to me, because I can tell you just get it. And when you actually look at the background, it's like, that's why. Because where you come from really like shapes who we are and who we care about. And I think when you talk back to your first question of like where we're at now and what needs to change, I feel like there's been an effort to kind of re-technicalize the climate movement and stop talking intersectionally, as if that's a choice, as if the world isn't just intersectional. Like you said, like we can only stop climate pollution only works. Climate change is only happening because we can use places as sacrifice zones. right? Like if we need to stop that in order to decarbonize, there is no just like focusing on the technocratic side of things. And if we do so, we can actually widen the inequities that we see via income, housing, or all the things. And this is our one chance with money finally in our communities from the Inflation Reduction Act to actually, close those gaps. So that idea of like, if we just focus now on like the technocratic expertise, we will win. I think we're heading the wrong direction there. So when I see like the labor movement pop off, and when I see like the kind of turnout we got last night, that really inspires me to be more.
Yeah, and one of the goals of the Green New Deal was to deal with the legacy of environmental injustice that especially affected Black, brown, poor communities all across our country. And inside the Inflation Reduction Act, or the Green New Deal that President Biden signed, 40% of all the money goes now to environmental justice, to remediate the problems of the past. For example, in Massachusetts, in Chelsea, in Lawrence, which have the highest rates of environmental injustice and asthma as a result of unremediated conditions that were created there. When COVID came along, because asthma is a lung disease, COVID came along, and where were the largest percentages of deaths? In the Lawrences, in the Chelseas, not just in Massachusetts, but all across the country, because they were more vulnerable. So that's one of the real, I think, breakthrough concepts that the Green New Deal has created in terms of how we discuss these issues.
Yeah, I mean, I think even like people that identify as conservative or moderate or just not ideological, if you try to get them to care about decarbonization or like whatever global warming, it's hard for them to grasp what if they don't even care about their neighbor, like that you living next to the river. So you got to actually tell that story, and then you actually got to introduce them to those people and have those conversations in the community. That's what community organizing is all about. And I have a deep belief in people, like even people who identify as conservative, someone who may have voted for Trump, they're empathetic enough that they're like, wow, if that was my kid drinking dirty water or breathing air, I wouldn't want this to happen. And if we boil down the issue to like that, like just the pollution and like the harm to our kids, then that's the thing I think would really cut through. So, it's like people are empathetic, and we just gotta get those conversations going.
Well, they weren't apathetic at the fifth anniversary, the fifth birthday party for the Green New Deal. I saw hundreds of young people who are energized to turn the bill that we just passed a year and a half ago into the second biggest bill of all time on climate, so that we continue to move forward to have even larger and larger responses to the crisis.
That's right. And to go back to like the original New Deal, FDR was not like the Bernie Sanders or the Ed Markey or of his time. There's Huey Long talking about the share the wealth plan, like capping incomes. He was talking about the Ohio plan, turning factories to like make food for people. And FDR was more of like a compromise candidate, similar to Joe Biden. So when he was elected off of this movement of there are socialist organizers, there are workers organizers, or worker groups like fighting for unemployment insurance and tenant evacuations, like really big actions. That's when you saw like the first wave of New Deal policies. Like, and there's a lot of Emergency Banking Act, Emergency Relief Act, and then on the second term is when there was a big labor uprising, and then like similar to what we're seeing now. And then the second term is when he delivered like Social Security Act and Work Progress Administration and all those things. So I think we're similarly seeing that same thing with Joe Biden. So I think 10 years, 20 years from now, when we look back at what was the Green New Deal, I think it will be Aja, CHIPS, and IRA for like the first set. And then it's kind of up to our organizing right now to define, first of all, make sure that we still have governing power. And then second, to define like what that next like Social Security scale policies are going to be. It's going to be rocky at first. Social Security wasn't that popular, but now it's the most durable and popular policy of all time.
Yeah, I agree with that. And just going back to FDR, I was inspired by FDR when I was a kid, and when I was in college, I actually wrote a paper on the Civilian Conservation Corps, because as a young guy, I was inspired by the millions of young guys, for the most part, that went out, to be a part of this conservation revolution in our country. And the legacy is still with us, the work that they did. And so I wrote my paper on it. And so one of the things which Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and I were trying to create as part of the revolution was a civilian climate corps for this generation. And although it got defeated in the bill, President Biden has now adopted it and created an American climate corps with 20,000 young people in it. By the way, 2.5 times bigger than the Peace Corps, which was inspirational in the 1960s.
Wow.
So we've made enormous progress, and you can see the excitement of young people trying now to sign up for the American Climate Corps to work on these problems. So it's young people who are leading us.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I take cues from my 7-year-old. Like it's amazing how much like energy is coming from. I just aged out. I'm 35 now, so I'm like just got out of the sunrise age. But I think it's imperative that we're cutting across generations here as well. We have a generation full of lead, a generation full of asbestos, a generation full of microplastics. I just want to make sure that we're fighting so like my 7-year-old and my 4-year-old, can be healthy. I guess that's simple.
Well, I'll just give you this one stat, which is that Japanese women die from breast cancer or contract breast cancer at only 1/3 the rate of American women. But when Japanese women move to the United States, they contract breast cancer at the same rate as American women. So what is it that we do to ourselves with the chemicals, with plastics, what we have in our food, in our water, in our air, that contributes to the misspelling of genes, which then causes these diseases, not just breast cancer, but across the board. So finally, there's a campaign to do something about it. And the Green New Deal and its network that you run is a big part of that army.
That's right. And we're always trying to build the network. There are new organizations joining greenoilnetwork.org if you have an organization that's interested, and also build that army. Sunrise Movement has done a lot of work building an army of youth, but we got to make sure that everyone, all of us are in it. We're in a world now where 78% of Republicans think that corporations have too much power. Not moderates, not socialists, Republicans. And I think that's a window for us to really organize and say we can make government work if we unmoor it from the influence of corporations. And that's a message that resonates across party lines, across race, class, gender, and then connect that to like the actual health impacts and wealth impacts of climate.
Yeah, there's an old saying that progressives are usually right, but too soon. You got to wait for other people to catch up. But they're catching up, and the polling is saying that independents and Republicans are starting to understand the impact which all of these just absolutely condemnable, indiscriminate corporate policies have upon the lives of ordinary families. So thank you for everything that you do. And before we end this, we end it with a game that we play at the end of each one of the Ed Markey podcasts, which is called Big Oil or Movie Villain.
Okay.
Big Oil or Movie Villain.
Okay.
And I'll read a quote and tell you what somebody said, and you'll tell me whether it was a big oil executive or a movie villain. So are you ready? Up first? Ready?
Let's do it.
Okay. Quote, you've heard of the golden rule, haven't you? Whoever has the gold makes the rules. What do you think? Big oil executive or movie villain?
That one sounds like a movie villain.
Correct answer. Movie villain. That was Jafar in Aladdin. But Big Oil seems to think it should make its own rules.
I could see a Rex Tillerson tweeting that.
If he had been as creative as Walt Disney.
Yeah, and that's the thing. They're just not as smart as the Disney movies.
Okay, here's one more. This one has been tricky for some of my other guests, so let's see if you can get it. Quote, did we join some of these shadow groups? Yes, we did. But there's nothing illegal about that.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Big Oil or movie villain?
That gotta be Big Oil.
Big Oil. That was Keith McCoy, Exxon Mobil lobbyist, saying the quiet part out loud.
So that was the Greenpeace interview? Like they pretended they're like a headhunter and
I don't know, exactly
Yeah,
if it
how's it
was
going?
Greenpeace, but it was definitely a green group
yeah.
getting the oil executive to admit in public
That's beautiful.
what they were saying in the boardroom
Yeah, exactly.
all along. So we give Greenpeace or whoever did it credit, but I'm with you. And now one more, the final one. You're 2 for 2. Nobody panics when things go according to plan, even if the plan is horrifying. Nobody panics when things go according to plan, even
Wow.
if the plan is horrifying. Big oil executive or movie villain?
That's big oil.
Big oil?
No.
Oh, you were so close
Oh,
to perfection. No, that was the Joker
Oh
in
yeah.
Dark Knight. Big oil's plans are too horrifying to ignore. So that was just a movie villain. And it doesn't match destroying the whole planet, and they try to hide the horrifying consequences of their actions every single day, which is why, by the way, your work in helping to get the Biden administration to have a pause on any more LNG facilities being constructed in America is so important. Your work in getting a climate ban, your work in getting a 10-year tax break for wind and solar and all electric vehicles and battery storage technologies is so important. Your work in having 40% of all of the money that's now going to be spent on environmental justice communities. That's the victory of the Green New Deal network. So thank you.
No, thanks so much. And I just want to say, like, you in particular, and your office, your staff is incredible, and have really been a model of what movement governance could look like when we're actually, like, despite the electoral college and all the things that like stifle democracy, when we actually move with the communities that are most impacted. So, yeah, thanks for doing all you can.
Thank you, Kaniela, and thanks to everyone listening. We'll see you all next time.